next 2 years, many of you will be graduating from high school, and there's going to be a world of opportunities at your feet. So it sounds like a great idea to take a break from college, go on vacation, see the world, find out what you're interested in. I'm here to tell you that's not the best option. Go to college as soon as possible, immediately. I was once faced with these same choices that you're facing today, whether or not to travel, whether or not to continue learning, whether or not to pursue a job, and I chose all three, at least for the first 2 years after I graduated. I fell in love with a job that I would spend the rest of my life doing if it weren't for the fact that it took 12 hours a day to do, which wasn't quite opportune for raising a family. And this is the time to consider the long-term consequences, not just the immediate right here, right now, which at this age, that's all y'all really had to face up to this point. You've never had to consider, what am I going to do 20 years from now? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to take care of the family and support everybody? But immediately enrolling in college will open the door to many scholarships. It'll take away the overlapping of learned materials that you've already learned. But in addition, it'll also decrease the number of distractions that will arise if you wait to go to college until later in life. College is expensive no matter when you choose to attend. However, there are several advantages, monetary advantages, to attending right out of high school. Currently, you have teachers, you have counselors at your disposal that would be more than happy to go through and help you with scholarships, with resumes, going through and finding out which scholarships are best for you and that you are eligible for. But in addition to the scholarships, you're also eligible for government aids and also for loans. If you ever wondered when you were going to have to use algebra in the real world, it's definitely going to be when you're going through and setting up these loans. Subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, do we really even know what those mean at this point? I can tell you 10 years later. I still have to go back and research all the little definitions and interest rates and which ones I'm going to have to pay back when and where and how. It's a pain. But the English translation of those is you're going to spend the next 20 years paying for your education. The process is far less painful when you have parents that are here to help you, and also when you're still considered a dependent, when you have parents that will take out those loans for you and oversee them as the years go by. After acquiring the funds that you need to attend college, why would you want to waste them taking remedial classes or entry classes like math and English? Yes, you may have done great on your SATs. Yes, you may have had a favorite English teacher or favorite subject in math. But are you really going to remember how to write an ABA format research paper 10 years after graduating from high school? In addition to that, let's talk about math here. How often do you have to go through and plot a point on a graph? You try Googling that information after you decipher through how to plot a point. You're going to have to go back and decipher through what the y-intercept is or how to determine the slope of a line before you can ever get to that point. Whereas if you attend college immediately, you'll already have that information stored right there in the back of your brain ready to be used at your disposal. But also, studies regarding the advantages and disadvantages to year-round schooling have provided evidence that starting to lose information, or you start to lose information after 4 days of not using that information. So if you take a year or two off to go through, spend some time finding out who you are, you're going to be starting back at square one with everything that you know. Did you really invest the last 13 years of your life going to school in order to forget all those details that could help you turn an ordinary job into a career that you love? A lack of time is the main opponent to waiting to start college later in life, though. Should you decide to take time off and see where life leads, you'll find that the bosses aren't necessarily flexible with your schedule when you decide to go back to school, especially if it's for a major that does not necessarily pertain to the career field that you're currently in. Not only do they lose an employee that they've already invested time in, some of them in some cases have already invested money in and resources in to you learning in that career field. But they also lose money because you're at school, you're not there working for them. In addition, with age also comes more responsibility, and closely tied to the working situation, you're going to have house payments, you're going to have car payments. Throwing in a school payment would definitely offset budgeting. So So you will have to be working and going to school at the same time to pay for those things, as well as to pay for your college education. But last and certainly not least is the fact that most adults that are returning to school already have families of their own. So balancing family time, balancing school time can cause a lot of strain not only on the family but also on the student that's returning to school at this point in life. It may be easy for your family to understand that you going back to school would be a great benefit for them in the long run, but are they really going to understand that missing football practice, football games, ballet recitals is important at that point in their life, when what they're focused on is, like most college students, most elementary students, their little world. They don't see the bigger picture of how it's going to affect them in the long run. They see that you're not there spending time with things that are important to them. Those sacrifices have to be made, whether you choose to go to school now, whether you choose to go to school later. It's better to make those sacrifices when those sacrifices directly affect you instead of affecting your whole family later in life. Though backpacking through Europe or spending a year on the coast may seem like the most enjoyable option, especially celebrating your newfound freedom, keep in mind that freedom is only temporarily. Eventually you will have to go back to work to support your lifestyle or your living, and then you will become a slave to your job if you choose to take a mediocre job that you can just go by, pay the bills, as compared to finding a job that you love that would be flexible with your time schedule, that could become a career instead of a job. There's an old saying that's involving dieting, and it's a moment on the lips is a lifetime on the hips. And the same philosophy can be applied to taking a break from school. Though a long-term vacation may seem great right now, the consequences by far outweigh the pleasures. And that being said, take the advice of someone who has experienced the positives and negatives of going to school immediately following or going to college immediately following high school, and then also taking time off to go back later. Go to school, go to college as soon as possible.